Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and the Rings of Power is over, and I still can't quite fathom that that is the case. We are today a week out from the last episode airing, and I'm so glad that I don't have to stay up tonight and watch another episode of that abomination. But it seems like there is still cope going on from the showrunners and the studio that is not at all surprising, at least at this point in time, because it looks like the showrunners will not be listening to fan criticism when it comes to their plans for season 2. We got this article here from Shill Rant that kind of incorporates their comments all into one, and it's quite profound how stupid at least one of these showrunners is. Rings of Power Season 2 won't address fan feedback, says creators. Why not? You've gotten more criticism than any show I've ever seen. Like, She-Hulk. You rival She-Hulk in the amount of criticism you've received. And you're gonna ignore it all? I mean, sure, I can see why you do some of the extreme stuff, which is still legitimate, but I can see from your warped, twisted mentality, we'll avoid the extreme stuff. But the stuff about pacing, the stuff about characters, the stuff about dialogue, you're just gonna ignore that too and just full steam ahead on this train of crap? Yeah, that's the mentality of many Hollywood studios these days, that they're right, that they're going to make whatever they want, and the fans will have to consume it, shove it down their throats, no matter what it is, no matter how horrific it actually is. It is not the fans' job to care, not the fans' job to critique, not the fans' job to love or hate. It is just to consume. Take it, Big Daddy, take it. And that's all that this is, coming from the showrunners, that same mentality that we've seen time and time again from Hollywood. So creators JD Payne and Patrick McKay explain why season 2 won't incorporate any feedback from fans. How narcissistic do you have to be to think we're right, everyone else in the world is wrong? We're smarter than Tolkien, we're writing the book, he never could. That type of mentality is incredibly narcissistic, especially considering that they failed at making movies. After 10 years, they're like, you know what? We haven't been able to make a movie. Let's try TV, and we're awesome, so we're going to make the best TV show ever, and anyone who says anything differently is patently evil. Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like being in their heads, the ego on these men. Despite many aspects of season 1 proving generally popular, I'm sorry, can you provide receipts for that? Because I've seen a lot of criticism for the show and very little positivity that isn't from stans who are just like, it's the greatest thing ever. All right, name something. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm not gonna listen to that type of praise. But even people who normally just lap up everything are like, this was fine. That's the best praise I've heard from anyone in my personal life or online that isn't a stan mentality. It's okay. That's not resoundingly popular. And as we've shown so many times, the Google trends kind of refute that. The Rings of Power has been the subject of intense online debate, with many fans not liking how Payne and McKay adapted Tolkien source material. My response to that would be, they didn't adapt the source material. They threw it out. I mean, yes, I know that they had access to very little source material, but they threw out what little that they had for their story, for the book that Tolkien never wrote in their words. Still, narcissistic, but I would not say this was based on Tolkien's work because it's got names and locations, and that's about all similar that it has with the source material. Season 1 currently holds an 82% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, that's with the critics who we haven't trusted in years since really Captain Marvel. I mean, just look at the comparison between a movie like Joker and Cuties. There's a stark difference there, and that's a perfect reminder of why I don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes critics. But some critics have pointed out the show's pacing and narrative momentum has room for improvement. Now, this is something that is interesting, kind of going with my video yesterday. This isn't something that would have been said a few weeks ago. If anybody from one of these mainstream or access media sites had even admitted it to that extent, just saying, yeah, it's got some pacing issues, they would have been lumped in with all the racist and sexist stuff. I know people who just had those types of minor concerns and thought the show was fine, and they still got grouped in with everyone who said the show was abysmally terrible. It was very much a mentality of, you will love the show, give it a 10 out of 10, or you're alt-right Yahtzee. That was the mentality that was going on through the show's initial release window. But now, a little bit more critical is starting to seep into these places, and they're willing to admit that it's not as perfect as they pretended it to be, and that's an interesting transition to have seen. Now, these are the actual quotes from JD Payne and Patrick McKay. Payne said, "We're currently listening to the critics of our audience. We don't want to give any one voice too much weight, but figure out what people are responding to, and I don't know if I want to point out any specifics." That is actually a decent response. I will respect Payne. That was a good response. Just saying, hey, we're listening to everyone, not going to weigh one person above another, but we're listening and paying attention. That is actually a great response, considering the amount of backlash that was received. I can respect that response. But Patrick McKay, no, he's not as nuanced as Payne. My immediate reaction to that question is no.
We're like the best ever. You're evil for even asking that question. We will not listen to critics or fans. No!
Yeah. Very, very narcissistic, in my personal opinion. Not that we aren't paying attention to the response the show is having. I don't know how you could shut it out. Yeah, because it's so vehemently hated for very justifiable reasons. The dialogue alone is enough to give this a 3 out of 10. And all the other stuff tanks it well below that. But the second season was written for some time now, and the storytelling grows and goes in different directions. You've still got 2 years, and you're not, like, you can rewrite your scripts. You're not just going to say, oh, it's already written, so we can't change course. No, you can still at least try. You started filming. You can tell Morford Clark to stop acting like a bitch. That is your job as the showrunners, to direct her. Direct her in a more positive direction. But no, we're the best. It's already written, so we can't change anything. It's locked in stone. What's a second draft? I've never heard a second draft. A lot of these terrible products that are coming out these days never see a second draft. Like Black Widow, written in 6 days. The Doctor Strange 2 movie, written in a week, never saw a second draft. I doubt these guys know what a second draft is either, and know that you can do, let's call it a rewrite. That is informed by what we learned from season 1 on our own. Oh, so they're going to take what they learned from season 1, but they're not going to listen to what people tell them that they should have learned from season 1. Yeah, more narcissism. Wow, these people are quite up their own arses. There are things that seem to really work and others that didn't work as well as we might have hoped. The storytelling will be different next time, not because of the response to the show, but because of the experience of making the show for us. So that's a great way of saying it might be a little bit different, but it's not because of you. We are not listening to you. We're learning and improving because we're smart and we're awesome and we're learning from ourselves. We're not listening to you. That is an incredibly narcissistic perspective from people who have never made a television show before. Like, I've never made a television show before, so it would be a good idea if I made the most expensive television show ever made tomorrow that I listen to the feedback I get. It's what happens. If you're shit at something, you get feedback and you try to improve. You don't just stick your head in the sand and say, no, we're the best. Now they kind of go into the whole, race situation that's been a surrounding narrative that they keep focusing on. When everyone is really moved past that months ago, and people are focusing on the writing and dialogue now from the audience perspective when they're critiquing it, but these mainstream and access media sites, they will not move past the whole race situation that started out with the initial announcements. But Rings of Power was also criticized for genuine narrative issues and some episodes seeming trivial plot lines as they relate to the overarching story being told. I'd say about 3/4 of it was trivial plot lines, and what wasn't a trivial plot line could have been cut down substantially. I fully believe that this entire season could have been told 2-3 episodes pretty easily. Not difficult at all. And so again, this is a piece of criticism that would have been unlikely to have been seen a few weeks ago. So interesting that it's the needle starting to move even for places like Shill Rant. And they close out their article saying, considering its massive budget, the show has managed to bring the world of Middle-earth to life in a way that rivals Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. Oh yeah, because I can't. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Yeah, the terrible armor, the fine enough set design occasionally, to the static CGI that looks good when it's static, but as soon as the camera moves or the landscape moves, it looks awful. To all that, how are you immersing us in this world? Distance and time mean nothing. That's an important part of world immersion. This is asinine shillery. It doesn't compare. The Jackson movies are 3 of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion. That immerses you in that world within the first 20 minutes. We're 8 hours into the Rings of Power, and I'm not even invested in anybody or anything. That is the shilliest of shilly takes that I could possibly have imagined. The series is also evidently drawing heavily from Tolkien's work. Man, he did a 1-2 punch there to shock. No. With Rings of Power, you have to look for where the lore is the same. At least with the Jackson movies, you had to look for where the lore was different. What is it basing off of? Oh, it's got a character named Galadriel in it, and Tolkien wrote that, so it's based off his works really well, drawing heavily from them. No, you can't take names and places and say it's drawing heavily from it. No, there's nothing in common with Tolkien's works besides names and locations. That is not enough to say that it's drawn heavily from Tolkien's work. This is an insult to Tolkien in every conceivable way, and an insult to art, an insult to creativity, an insult to the audience's eyes and senses. Jesus Christ. I have to take back what little praise I gave Shillrand for being a little bit tad more critical than they would have been a few weeks ago, because it's hard to one up the shillery that was just evident in that few sentences. It remains to be seen how the Rings of Power will evolve in Season 2, but it's clear that Patrick McKay and JD Payne very much have their own plan that they're sticking to. Yeah, narcissists, doubling down. They're going to double down so freaking hard. And it doesn't surprise me at all, coming from these showrunners who have had such awful takes, like calling their own audience, their customers, not their consumers, their customers, patently evil. But this is just narcissism on full display, bad reboot on full display, and I can't imagine how bad Season 2 is going to be, because I feel like they're going to double and triple down. They're not listening to fans, so it can only get worse from here, in my personal opinion. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.